AWS Certified DevOps Engineer, Professional DOP-C02 exam guides is here for you to study. The DOP-C02 exam is designed to be completed within 180 minutes and costs $300 USD. It consists of 75 questions presented in either multiple choice or multiple response formats. Candidates can take the exam through Pearson VUE, either at a testing center or via online proctoring, offering flexibility in the delivery method. The DOP-C02 exam is available in multiple languages, including English, Japanese, Korean, and simplified Chinese, to accommodate a diverse range of test takers. The DOP-C02 exam content is structured into 6 key domains, each covering essential aspects of expertise. Domain 1. SDLC automation constitutes 22% of the exam, focusing on automating the software development lifecycle. Domain 2. Configuration management and IAC accounts for 17%. Emphasizing infrastructure as code and efficient configuration practices. Domain 3. Resilient cloud solutions covers 15%, highlighting strategies for designing robust and fault-tolerant cloud architectures. Domain 4. Monitoring and logging also contributes 15%, addressing tools and techniques for effective system monitoring and log management. Domain 5. Incident and event response makes up 14%, focusing on managing and responding to security incidents and events. Lastly, Domain 6. Security and compliance, with a weight of 17%, emphasizes implementing secure practices and adhering to compliance standards. Preparing for the DOP-C02 exam requires a strategic approach to ensure success. Start by thoroughly understanding the DOP-C02 exam overview, including its format, duration, and content distribution across key domains. Focus on mastering the DOP-C02 exam domains, which encompass essential areas such as SDLC automation, configuration management, resilient cloud solutions, and security compliance. Engage with the AWS community by joining the AWS Certified Forum, where you can exchange knowledge, tips, and experiences with other candidates and certified professionals. Finally, consistently practice DOP-C02 exam questions to familiarize yourself with the question patterns and reinforce your understanding of the exam material. A company wants to use AWS CloudFormation for infrastructure deployment. The company has strict tagging and resource requirements and wants to limit the deployment to 2 regions. Developers will need to deploy multiple versions of the same application. Which solution ensures resources are deployed in accordance with company policy? A. Create AWS Trusted Advisor checks to find and remediate unapproved CloudFormation stack sets. B. Create a CloudFormation drift detection operation to find and remediate unapproved CloudFormation stack sets. C. Create CloudFormation stack sets with approved CloudFormation templates. D. Create AWS Service Catalog products with approved CloudFormation templates. The correct answer is D because AWS Service Catalog allows organizations to centrally manage commonly deployed IT services, enforce compliance, and achieve consistent resource provisioning. By creating AWS Service Catalog products using approved CloudFormation templates, you can enforce tagging standards, limit deployments to specific regions, and allow developers to deploy versions of the application while ensuring compliance with company policy. This solution gives control over what resources and configurations are allowed to be deployed, aligning with the company's strict requirements. A development team is using AWS Code Commit to version control application code and AWS Code Pipeline to orchestrate software deployments. The team has decided to use a remote main branch as the trigger for the pipeline to integrate code changes. A developer has pushed code changes to the code commit repository, but noticed that the pipeline had no reaction, even after 10 minutes. Which of the following actions should be taken to troubleshoot this issue? A. Check that an Amazon Event Bridge rule has been created for the main branch to trigger the pipeline. B. Check that the code pipeline service role has permission to access the code commit repository. C. Check that the developer's IAM role has permission to push to the code commit repository. D. Check to see if the pipeline failed to start because of code commit errors in Amazon CloudWatch logs. The correct answer is A because AWS Code Pipeline uses Amazon Event Bridge, formerly CloudWatch events, to detect changes in the source repository. In this case, AWS Code Commit and trigger the pipeline. If the pipeline didn't react to a code push, it could indicate that the necessary event bridge rule was not created or properly configured to listen for changes in the main branch. Ensuring that an event bridge rule is in place for the main branch is the first step to troubleshoot why the pipeline was not triggered. A company runs an application with an Amazon EC2 and on-premises configuration. A DevOps engineer needs to standardize patching across both environments. Company policy dictates that patching only happens during non-business hours. Which combination of actions will meet these requirements? Choose 3. A. Add the physical machines into AWS Systems Manager using Systems Manager hybrid activations. B. Attach an IAM role to the EC2 instances, allowing them to be managed by AWS Systems Manager. C. Create IAM access keys for the on-premises machines to interact with AWS Systems Manager. D. Run an AWS Systems Manager automation document to patch the systems every hour. E. Use Amazon Event Bridge scheduled events to schedule a patch window. F. Use AWS Systems Manager maintenance windows to schedule a patch window. The correct answer is A, B, F. Because they add the physical machines into AWS Systems Manager using Systems Manager hybrid activations. To manage on-premises servers with AWS Systems Manager, you need to use hybrid activations to register those machines. This will allow the on-premises machines to be patched using AWS Systems Manager. B. Attach an IAM role to the EC2 instances, allowing them to be managed by AWS Systems Manager. The EC2 instances need to be able to communicate with AWS Systems Manager. Attaching the appropriate IAM role allows AWS Systems Manager to perform patching operations on these instances. F. Use AWS Systems Manager maintenance windows to schedule a patch window. AWS Systems Manager maintenance windows allows you to define a specific schedule for maintenance tasks, such as patching, Ensuring that it happens during non-business hours is required by company policy. A company uses AWS storage gateway in file gateway mode in front of an Amazon S3 bucket that is used by multiple resources. In the morning when business begins, users do not see the objects processed by a third party the previous evening. When a DevOps engineer looks directly at the S3 bucket, the data is there, but it is missing in storage gateway. Which solution ensures that all the updated third-party files are available in the morning? A. Configure a nightly Amazon Event Bridge event to invoke an AWS Lambda function to run the refresh cache command for storage gateway. B. Instruct the third party to put data into the S3 bucket using AWS Transfer for SFTP. C. Modify storage gateway to run in volume gateway mode. D. Use S3 same region replication to replicate any changes made directly in the S3 bucket to storage gateway. The correct answer is A because AWS Storage Gateway in file gateway mode caches objects locally for better performance, but when files are added directly to the Amazon S3 bucket by a third party, the cache may not immediately reflect those changes. Running the refresh cache command ensures that the file gateway updates its cache and includes any new or modified objects. By using an Amazon Event Bridge event to invoke an AWS Lambda function to run refresh cache nightly, you can ensure that the storage gateway is up to date and users can see all changes each morning. A company wants to set up a continuous delivery pipeline. The company stores application code in a private GitHub repository. The company needs to deploy the application components to Amazon Elastic Container Service, Amazon ECS, Amazon EC2, and AWS Lambda. The pipeline must support manual approval actions. Which solution will meet these requirements? A. Use AWS code pipeline with Amazon ECS, Amazon EC2, and Lambda as deploy providers. B. Use AWS code pipeline with AWS code deploy as the deploy provider. C. Use AWS code pipeline with AWS Elastic Beanstalk as the deploy provider. D. Use AWS code deploy with GitHub integration to deploy the application. The correct answer is A because AWS code pipeline is a fully managed continuous integration and continuous delivery (CI/CD) service that helps automate the build, test, and deploy phases of application code. In this scenario, code pipeline can be integrated with GitHub to use the private GitHub repository as the source. It can also be configured to deploy application components to multiple targets, such as Amazon ECS, Amazon EC2, and AWS Lambda, which meets the requirement to deploy to all specified services. Additionally, AWS code pipeline supports manual approval actions, which is part of the company's requirements. A company has migrated its container-based applications to Amazon EKS and want to establish automated email notifications. The notifications sent to each email address are for specific activities related to EKS components. The solution will include Amazon SNS topics and an AWS Lambda function to evaluate incoming log events and publish messages to the correct SNS topic. Which logging solution will support these requirements? A. Enable Amazon CloudWatch logs to log the EKS components. Create a CloudWatch subscription filter for each component with Lambda as the subscription feed destination. B. Enable Amazon CloudWatch logs to log the EKS components. Create CloudWatch logs insights queries linked to Amazon Event Bridge events that invoke Lambda. C. Enable Amazon S3 logging for the EKS components. Configure an Amazon CloudWatch subscription filter for each component with Lambda as the subscription feed destination. D. Enable Amazon S3 logging for the EKS components. Configure S3 put object event notifications with AWS Lambda as the destination. The correct answer is A because Amazon CloudWatch logs provides an efficient way to collect and monitor logs from EKS components, including application logs, control plane logs, and other cluster activities. By creating CloudWatch subscription filters, you can define specific filters that extract log events matching particular criteria, e.g., specific activities related to EKS components. These filtered events can then be sent to an AWS Lambda function as a destination. The Lambda function will process the log events and publish relevant messages to the correct Amazon SNS topic, allowing you to establish automated email notifications for specific activities. A DevOps engineer used an AWS CloudFormation custom resource to set up a D connector. The AWS Lambda function ran and created a D connector, but CloudFormation is not transitioning from create_in_progress to create_complete. Which action should the engineer take to resolve this issue? A. Ensure the Lambda function code has exited successfully. B. Ensure the Lambda function code returns a response to the pre-signed URL. C. Ensure the Lambda function IAM role has CloudFormation update stack permissions for the stack ARN. D. Ensure the Lambda function IAM role has DS-Connect directory permissions for the AWS account. The correct answer is B because when using an AWS CloudFormation custom resource, the custom resource relies on an AWS Lambda function to perform some actions, in this case, setting up an AD connector. For CloudFormation to successfully transition from create_in_progress to create_complete, the Lambda function must send a response back to CloudFormation using a pre-signed URL. This response is a signal to CloudFormation that the custom resource operation has completed successfully or failed. If the Lambda function doesn't send a response back to the pre-signed URL, CloudFormation remains stuck in the create_in_progress state because it has no confirmation that the action was completed. Thus, the solution here is to ensure that the Lambda function properly returns a response to the pre-signed URL that CloudFormation provides, notifying it of the status of the custom resource execution. This allows CloudFormation to complete the custom resource creation process and transition to create_complete. Other options, such as IAM permissions for the Lambda role, are important, but they would usually lead to failures earlier in the process, such as the Lambda function failing to execute. The key issue here is CloudFormation not transitioning due to a missing response, which is addressed in option B. A DevOps engineer is researching the least expensive way to implement an image batch processing cluster on AWS. The application cannot run in Docker containers and must run on Amazon EC2. The batch job stores checkpoint data on an NFS volume and can tolerate interruptions. Configuring the cluster software from a generic EC2 Linux image takes 30 minutes. What is the most cost-effective solution? A. Use Amazon EFS, or checkpoint data. To complete the job, use an EC2 autoscaling group and an on-demand pricing model to provision EC2 instances temporarily. B. Use GlusterFS on EC2 instances for checkpoint data. To run the batch job, configure EC2 instances manually. When the job completes, shut down the instances manually. C. Use Amazon EFS for checkpoint data. Use EC2 Fleet to launch EC2 Spot instances and utilize user data to configure the EC2 Linux instance on startup. D. Use Amazon EFS for checkpoint data. Use EC2 Fleet to launch EC2 Spot instances. Create a custom AMI for the cluster and use the latest AMI when creating instances. The correct answer is D, because Amazon EFS, Elastic File System, is used for storing checkpoint data since it provides a managed, scalable, and shared file storage solution that multiple EC2 instances can access. EC2 Fleet with Spot instances is the most cost-effective way to run a batch processing job that can tolerate interruptions. Spot instances provide significant cost savings compared to on-demand instances. Creating a custom AMI allows the cluster configuration to be baked into the image, which eliminates the need to spend 30 minutes configuring the cluster each time a new instance is launched. This reduces startup time and ensures consistency across cluster nodes. An Amazon EC2 instance is running in a VPC and needs to download an object from a restricted Amazon S3 bucket. When the DevOps engineer tries to download the object, an access denied error is received. What are the possible causes for this error? Select 2. A. The 53-bucket default encryption is enabled. B. There is an error in the S3 bucket policy. C. The object has been moved to S3 Glacier. D. There is an error in the IAM role configuration. E. S3 versioning is enabled. The correct answer is B, D. Because B, there is an error in the S3 bucket policy. An incorrect or restrictive bucket policy may deny access to the EC2 instance, leading to an access denied error. The bucket policy controls permissions for the bucket and can restrict access based on IP addresses, VPCs, or IAM roles. D. There is an error in the IAM role configuration. If the IAM role attached to the EC2 instance does not have the correct permissions, e.g., S3, get object, the attempt to download the object will be denied. The IAM role must be properly configured to allow the required S3 actions on the bucket. A company wants to ensure that their EC2 instances are secure. They want to be notified if any new vulnerabilities are discovered on their instances, and they also want an audit trail of all login activities on the instances. Which solution will meet these requirements? A. Use AWS Systems Manager to detect vulnerabilities on the EC2 instances. Install the Amazon Kinesis agent to capture system logs and deliver them to Amazon S3. B. Use AWS Systems Manager to detect vulnerabilities on the EC2 instances. Install the Systems Manager agent to capture system logs and view login activity in the CloudTrail console. C. Configure Amazon CloudWatch to detect vulnerabilities on the EC2 instances. Install the AWS config daemon to capture system logs and view them in the AWS config console. D. Configure Amazon Inspector to detect vulnerabilities on the EC2 instances. Install the Amazon CloudWatch agent to capture system logs and record them via Amazon CloudWatch logs. The correct answer is D, because Amazon Inspector is a security assessment service that helps identify vulnerabilities in EC2 instances and alerts users if any vulnerabilities are found. This meets the requirement of being notified about newly discovered vulnerabilities. Amazon CloudWatch agent can be used to collect system logs, including authentication logs, e.g., var log, secure on Linux or Windows event logs, and send them to Amazon CloudWatch logs. By using CloudWatch logs, the company can maintain an audit trail of login activities, providing a way to monitor and review access. This solution ensures both continuous monitoring for vulnerabilities and the logging of system activities, fulfilling both the security and audit requirements of the company. A DevOps engineer is deploying a new version of a company's application in an AWS code deployment group associated with its Amazon EC2 instances. After some time, the deployment fails. The engineer realizes that all the events associated with a specific deployment ID are in a skipped status and code was not deployed in the instances associated with the deployment group. What are valid reasons for this failure? Select 2. A. The networking configuration does not allow the EC2 instances to reach the Internet via a NAT gateway or Internet gateway, and the code deploy endpoint cannot be reached. B. The IAM user who triggered the application deployment does not have permission to interact with the code deploy endpoint. C. The target EC2 instances were not properly registered with the code deploy endpoint. D. An instance profile with proper permissions was not attached to the target EC2 instances. E. The app spec YML file was not included in the application revision. The correct answer is A, D. Because A. The networking configuration does not allow the EC2 instances to reach the Internet via a NAT gateway or Internet gateway, and the code deploy endpoint cannot be reached. For AWS code deploy to work, the EC2 instances need network access to reach the code deploy service endpoint. If the instances are in a private subnet without access to the Internet through a NAT gateway or Internet gateway, they will not be able to communicate with the code deploy service, leading to deployment failures. D. An instance profile with proper permissions was not attached to the target EC2 instances. AWS code deploy requires that the target EC2 instances have an instance profile attached that includes permissions to allow the instances to access the code deploy agent and other resources. If the instance profile is missing or does not have the correct permissions, the deployment will not proceed, causing all deployment events to be marked as skipped. A company is storing 100 gigabytes of log data in CSV format in an Amazon S3 bucket. SQL developers want to query this data and generate graphs to visualize it. The SQL developers also need an efficient automated way to store metadata from the CSV file. Which combination of steps will meet these requirements with the least amount of effort? Select 3. A. Filter the data through AWS X-ray to visualize the data. B. Filter the data through Amazon QuickSight to visualize the data. C. Query the data with Amazon Athena. D. Query the data with Amazon Redshift. E. Use the AWS Glue data catalog as the persistent metadata store. F. Use Amazon DynamoDB as the persistent metadata store. The correct answer is B, C, E. Because B. Filter the data through Amazon QuickSight to visualize the data. Amazon QuickSight is an easy-to-use business intelligence tool that can be used to generate graphs and visualizations from data stored in Amazon S3. C. Query the data with Amazon Athena. Amazon Athena is a serverless query service that allows you to run SQL queries directly on data stored in Amazon S3. It is a very efficient way to analyze CSV files without moving or transforming the data. E. Use the AWS Glue data catalog as the persistent metadata store. AWS Glue data catalog can be used to store metadata about the CSV files, which makes it easier for services like Athena to understand the schema and structure of the data for querying. This combination of Athena, QuickSight, and Glue data catalog is the most efficient way to meet the requirements with minimal effort, leveraging serverless and managed services for querying, visualization, and metadata management. An application runs on Amazon EC2 instances behind an application load balancer, ALB. A DevOps engineer is using AWS code deploy to release a new version. The deployment fails during the ALB traffic lifecycle event, but a cause for the failure is not indicated in the deployment logs. What would cause this? A. The app spec. YML file contains an invalid script that runs in the allow traffic lifecycle hook. B. The user who initiated the deployment does not have the necessary permissions to interact with the ALB. C. The health checks specified for the ALB target group were misconfigured. D. The code deploy agent was not installed in the EC2 instances that are PAD of the ALB target group. The correct answer is C because during the allow traffic lifecycle event in an AWS code deploy deployment, traffic is routed to the instances behind the application load balancer, ALB. If the health checks for the ALB target group were misconfigured, the instances may not pass the health checks, leading to a failure during the allow traffic stage. This can cause the deployment to fail without explicit errors in the code deploy logs, as the issue is related to ALB health checks rather than the deployment script or agent. A company uses Amazon S3 to store proprietary information. The development team creates buckets for new projects on a daily basis. The security team wants to ensure that all existing and future buckets have encryption logging and versioning enabled. Additionally, no buckets should ever be publicly read or write accessible. What should a DevOps engineer do to meet these requirements? A. Enable AWS CloudTrail and configure automatic remediation using AWS Lambda. B. Enable AWS config rules and configure automatic remediation using AWS Systems Manager documents. C. Enable AWS Trusted Advisor and configure automatic remediation using Amazon Event Bridge. D. Enable AWS Systems Manager and configure automatic remediation using Systems Manager documents. The correct answer is B because AWS Config is a service that continuously monitors and records your AWS resource configurations, allowing you to assess, audit, and evaluate the compliance of these resources. By using AWS Config rules, you can ensure that all S3 buckets have encryption, logging, and versioning enabled and are not publicly accessible. Automatic remediation using AWS Systems Manager documents can be configured to take actions when a rule violation is detected. For example, if a bucket is found to be publicly accessible, a remediation action can be triggered automatically to modify the bucket policy and make it compliant. This combination allows for continuous monitoring and ensures that all existing and future S3 buckets meet the security team's requirements. A company is running an application on Amazon EC2 instances in an auto-scaling group. Recently an issue occurred that prevented EC2 instances from launching successfully, and it took several hours for the support team to discover the issue. The support team wants to be notified by email whenever an EC2 instance does not start successfully. Which action will accomplish this? A. Add a health check to the auto-scaling group to invoke an AWS Lambda function whenever an instance status is impaired. B. Configure the auto-scaling group to send a notification to an Amazon SNS topic whenever a failed instance launch occurs. C. Create an Amazon CloudWatch alarm that invokes an AWS Lambda function when a failed attach instance's auto-scaling API call is made. D. Create a status check alarm on Amazon EC2 to send a notification to an Amazon SNS topic whenever a status check fail occurs. The correct answer is B because Amazon auto-scaling groups can be configured to send notifications to Amazon SNS topics when certain events occur, such as an instance launch failure. By using this built-in capability, you can easily set up a notification that will alert the support team via email whenever an instance fails to launch successfully. This solution is straightforward and integrates seamlessly with auto-scaling, allowing the support team to be notified immediately when there are issues with instance launches.